Healthy aquarium plants are the result of proper nutrition and being able to identify deficiencies before they become a real problem. In this video, I'm breaking down the most common nutrition deficiencies, how to spot them early, and why your plants look the way they do when something is not right. Calcium deficiency can be hard to spot on a planted aquarium, even more so if you don't trim your plants too often, because it doesn't show up the way you would expect. When calcium is low, older leaves usually look fine. The problem shows up almost entirely in new growth. New leaves come in twisted, crinkled, or deformed, and sometimes the leaves never fully open. This happens because calcium is essential for building cell walls. Unlike some other nutrients, calcium is not mobile inside the plant. What I mean is the plant cannot move calcium from old leaves to new ones. If calcium isn't available in the water column, new growth suffers immediately, even if the rest of the plant looks healthy. And honestly, that can be a little confusing when we're trying to figure out what's wrong, because you look at the tank and everything seems to be fine, but new leaves keep coming in wrong. Calcium issues are more common in very soft water, especially when using an RO filter, because you have to add those minerals back yourself. Another situation where this shows up is in tanks with fast growth and frequent trimming. Demand goes up, supply doesn't, and the newest growth pays the price. The key thing to understand is that calcium problems don't fix themselves over time. Plants can't adapt to missing calcium. They either have it or new growth stays deformed. Once calcium is brought back into balance, new leaves start forming normally again. All damaged leaves won't recover, but healthy growth returning is how you know the issue is solved. Potassium plays a regulatory role inside aquarium plants. It controls water movement within cells. It helps activate enzymes, and it contributes heavily to overall plant strength and structure. Unlike nitrogen or phosphorus, potassium is not used to build plant tissue. Plants can continue growing even when potassium is low, but that growth becomes weaker and unstable. Because potassium is a mobile nutrient, plants will pull it from older leaves to support new growth. That's why the first signs always appear on older leaves. The most recognizable symptom is small pinholes forming in leaves, usually between the veins. Those pinholes slowly expand, turning into tears, cracks, and ragged edges. Leaves can look chewed up or damaged, even when no fish or trim are responsible. Another common sign is loss of rigidity. Stems can look weak, like they are having trouble holding their shape. Potassium deficiency is very common in planted aquariums because fish food provides very little potassium. Tap water usually contains almost none, so regular water changes don't replace it. This is why your aquarium can have good nitrogen and phosphate levels and still show ongoing leaf damage, especially in fast-growing stem plants. Fixing it usually means ensuring potassium is included in fertilization. Results don't show on damaged leaves. They show on new growth. Clean, intact leaves are the sign potassium levels are back on track. If you guys are enjoying the video, remember to like and subscribe for more tips and tricks to keep your aquariums healthy and thriving. Low phosphate creates a specific set of problems in planted aquariums, and those problems are often mistaken for having too much nutrients, because one of those problems is green spot algae. And when we see algae, we often assume it means too much nutrition, when in reality, green spot algae is more often linked to phosphate being too low. Phosphate plays a major role in energy transfer inside plants. It's part of how plants move and use energy at a cellular level. When phosphate runs low, plants don't immediately melt. Instead, growth slows down. New leaves stop forming as fast, and existing leaves stay in place longer than they should. This is why phosphate deficiency often shows up as green spot algae, especially on slow-growing leaves and on hard surfaces like glass, rocks, and equipment. The plant is still alive, but is no longer growing fast enough to compete with the algae. That pause in growth creates an opening and green spot algae takes advantage of that stable, unmoving surface. On glass, green spot algae is mostly a maintenance issue. You scrape it and move on. But on hardscape, it becomes a real problem. Most algae eaters won't touch it, and scraping rocks aggressively can damage the surface, which can release minerals and raise GH and KH. The better solution is restoring balance. Increase phosphate dosing slightly for a couple of weeks and see how it goes. A clear sign of nitrogen deficiency is plant growth slowing down across the entire aquarium. Nitrogen is a primary building block for plant tissue. It's used to form proteins, enzymes, and chlorophyll. One of the first signs is pale coloration, primarily in older leaves. Because nitrogen is a mobile nutrient such as potassium is, when levels drop, plants pull nitrogen from older tissue to support new growth. That's why older leaves turn yellow first, while newer growth might stay green for a while. Stem plants begin growing thinner, with stretching internodes, and overall plant mass increases much more slowly. Unlike algae-related problems, nitrogen deficiency rarely causes melting. Instead, plants just look weak and underdeveloped. This deficiency is most common in aquariums with only a few fish, or tanks with very heavy plant mass. Fish waste and leftover food are the main nitrogen sources in aquariums. When plant demand exceeds that supply, nitrogen runs out. This can also happen after large water changes or when fertilization is reduced too aggressively. When nitrogen is restored, you'll notice that color returns to older leaves, growth becomes thicker and more compact, and plants regain their ability to compete for nutrients. Algae problems often decrease at the same time, because once again, your plants are growing healthy across the entire aquarium. Iron is essential for chlorophyll production, but unlike nitrogen, iron is an immobile nutrient. Plants cannot move iron from old leaves to new ones, so when iron runs low, new growth shows the damage immediately. The most common sign is pale or yellow new leaves, while older leaves remain green and healthy. In stem plants, new tips might look washed out, almost white or very light green. In rosette plants, new leaves emerge weak and thin. Iron is not stored long-term in the water column. It gets consumed rapidly or precipitates out. So consistency matters more than how much you're dosing. Large, infrequent doses often don't work well because plants need a steady supply. Another issue is pH. At higher pH levels, iron becomes less available, even if it's technically present. That's why chelated iron is commonly used in fertilizers. It stays available longer. Nutrient deficiencies don't fix themselves. The sooner you spot them, the easier they are to correct. If you've dealt with any of these in your own tanks, or you've noticed something different in your plants, leave a comment and let me know what you're seeing. I'll help you guys out to the best of my abilities.